Okay, good morning. Let me turn my TV down all the way. I'm going to give my personal views. Like I said, these are my personal views on Cindy Anthony and her relationship with Casey Anthony. Because I've seen a lot of talk about this on Facebook, on different pages and groups and whatnot. You know, people talk about, oh, how dysfunctional the family is, blah, 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 whatnot, things like that. And how she's always defending Casey. Okay, here's how I look at it. And I'm going to say these things from a personal view standpoint, alright? I bet Casey was a handful as a teenager, maybe even younger. I see that she was more than likely the rebellious type that used to backtalk, have fits when she did not get her way, and George was the disciplinarian in the family, and because of that, him and Casey did not get along. Whereas her mother was the softy in the family, who would always be like, oh, well, let her do it, and always patted her on the back and babied her, and pretty much let her get her way because she just didn't want to have any conflict. And she's still doing it to this day, even though what's quite apparent what she did to her granddaughter that she loved more than life itself. And here's where the personal view comes in. I went through the same thing with my family. I was the type when I was young. I was very argumentative with my mother. If she would always say no, and I would run to my dad, and he would let me do it. And I know my mother will watch this because my daughter shows her my videos, and she will agree 100%. And so I see the same exact thing with their family, except it's the opposite parent. Now, granted, I would never, ever, ever in a million freaking years ever want to do harm to my children, which they're all grown now anyway, off doing their own thing. But that's where the differences between, me and her stop. And my family is right there. But I think it's the same thing going on. As I think that she was a very hard, very mouthy, out of control teen. And I think that she caused a lot of friction at home between George and Cindy. I think George was the one, the parent that always wanted to discipline, whereas Cindy was always the softy and let her get away with everything. And he just don't want, Cindy doesn't want to see any wrong in her, and she still wants to try too hard, and it is just not happening. Okay? So that's just my personal view on it. And I'm sure Casey was hell on wheels as a teenager. I guarantee you, because we don't hear any of that. We haven't heard any of that, and probably never will. I mean, we might down the road. Her parents may have, may write or have someone help them write a tell-all book. Who knows? I would think they may if the money offer is right, because I'm sure that this has put a huge financial strain on them. And we may find out later down the road. So that's just my personal standpoint on that issue right there. And that right there does not give the girl no right to do what she has done. And that does not make neither one of her parents bad parents. That just makes them a normal family with an unruly, rebellious teenager. That's just part of it. But I was nowhere, nothing like Casey Anthony. I mean, I told my parents white lies, like where I was going and stuff, because they didn't want me around the father of my two daughters and stuff. So I would make up lies like I was going to someone's house when I wasn't. And I would sneak off and go see him But my goodness, she takes lying to a whole new level that I've never seen nor heard of in my lifetime. And she's like damn good at it. She can just keep going and going and going like the Energizer Bunny. So another thing I'm sitting there thinking is, are they going to put her on the stand? Because my goodness, if they do, the prosecution is going to rip her a new one. And the jury, I just don't see the jury believing anything she says. Because I just cannot believe that her dad did what she's saying. Not at all. Because from my understanding, and I think you can look these letters up here on the internet, from what I'm reading on one of the Facebook groups, I've seen a few people mention it, that she did write a letter saying that she thinks her father may have touched her once. Thinks. Now, if the prosecution was smart, which they may be waiting, phone always starts ringing when I'm on here, they may be waiting to pull this letter out when the defense brings this molestation claim up, that she thinks he may have touched her. Because if you remember, old Bozo in his opening statements claims that her dad was sticking his thing in her mouth when she was 13 and then sending her off to school. So I believe that this letter she wrote while in jail, I think they've got it, and it'll come out. So I was really thinking that they were gonna end their witnesses with a slam dunk. I mean, they did good. They ended it pretty much with a bang, but I was thinking that something big was going to come out, and I was like, oh my goodness. We're all like speculating, what's it going to be? Who's it going to be? I was kind of disappointed. I was expecting them to have testimony on the cell phone pings that they were talking about, that, you know, during the time that Casey was telling her mother that she was in Jacksonville, and the cell phone pings were showing up that she was in the vicinity of their house the entire time, well, within a few miles, where she pretty much just kept going in circles for hours and hours. I thought that would be brought in. Then again, it may, during the defense, you know, witnesses, and they may bring that up during cross-examination. I think that I personally think the prosecution's still holding out. I think they've got a lot more that they're going to bring out during cross-examination. But I just had to bring that out about a lot, you know, things I've been reading about how dysfunctional the entire family is. I don't think the family is all that dysfunctional. I think they're a lot more normal than people think. I think that they just had to deal with a freaking spoiled brat in Casey, and she put them through hell, and that's no excuse for what she's done. No excuse whatsoever. You know, when she's grasping at straws out of desperation, and I think that her attorney, he just doesn't, he seems very incompetent. And I read, and I don't know if this is true. I'm gonna do research on this, because you know you can't always believe what you read on the internet. Somebody told me that Baez does not even have a regular high school diploma. That he got his GED, went into the Navy, got out of the Navy, then went to law school, and it took him 8 tries to pass the bar. 8 tries. Now, I may get replies on this. I don't know. Like I said, I'm going to research this. And I don't believe everything I read on the internet. And I read that and I'm thinking, oh my goodness. But I did also read that she found out about Baez through an inmate in jail. And that this is pretty much the first death penalty case that he's ever tried. And that's why this attorney Mason is on board, that he does have experience, and that Mason is doing all this pro bono, which I find that hard to believe. He's going to want money out of this down the line, and the taxpayers of Florida are going to be the ones that are going to end up footing the bill for this, along with everything else. And then there's actually a support page for her on Facebook, and these people write to her in jail and stuff. And then I read that there's some fellas across the country that put money on her books every week. You know, for her to buy from the commissary. And there's a web page on the internet where they post what she buys. She's buying things like flavored lipstick. Who in the hell needs flavored lipstick when they're in jail? I mean, I'm just curious. Unless she likes to lick her lips. I don't know. Never mind. Oh well, I'm going to get off of here. I just had to vent and talk about that for a minute. Anyway. Okay then. See you all later. Have a good day. Bye.